Now I haven't tied a Catskill style dry fly for the channel in a while, so let's do that today. Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm Matt, thanks for stopping by. So when I sat down at the bench to see what I wanted to tie today, I pulled out the to-do list and this one caught my eye. It's called the Bradley Special. Now there's not a lot of history on this fly. I got it from David Klausmeyer's Favorite Flies, and he mentions that it was probably created by two fly fishermen up in the Catskills, a guy named William Chandler and then William Bradley. Not much information on either of these gentlemen, but Walt and Winnie Dett did tie this fly for their clients, so I'm guessing the year it was created probably sometime in the 1930s. Now the only other book I saw mention of this fly was Mike Valla's Tying Catskill Style Flies, and he did have a great picture of one tied by either Walt or Winnie Dett, but again, he didn't have a whole lot of the background on the fly. So its real provenance might be lost to history. Now it's not the easiest pattern to tie because it is a Catskill style dry fly, but it's not any harder than the other ones. But it's a pretty cool pattern. I think you'll like it. Let's give it a shot. So there it is in the vise, the Bradley Special. Now common sizes for this are 12 to 16. I'm going to tie it on a size 12, but before I take that out of there, notice you can see the red thread through that body. That's part of the design. In fact, I might want just a little bit more showing than I had in that one. So we'll see if we can make that happen here. So it's size 12 dry fly hook, standard length, and red thread. This is a 70 denier. I'm going to catch it in up front. I'm not going to take it all the way to the back just yet. We'll get there in just a second. But the first thing we're going to tie in is our upright wing. And for the wing, just some mallard, some flank feathers, and this is a wood duck color. So I'm going to pull just a couple of chunks of that out. And let's see, where you want the thread to be hanging, envision the wing propped up right there and maybe 2 to 3 hackle wraps in front of it. So let's lay this in right here. We'll do a couple wraps and check it before we go too far. Okay, so envision flipping that up, and is that going to be the right height? Yeah, that will be, because we're going to have a pretty long hackle on it. And when it's flipped up, will I be able to get 2 wraps of hackle in front of it? Yeah, I think so. So let's go with this. Just a couple of wraps to secure it right here. And I'm going to go ahead and catch this, cut this off at a slight angle. It's not really a big deal because we have a fuzzy body, but if you do that, you might just be able to get a smoother taper going down right here. So go ahead and take your thread back to the start of the bend and we'll catch in our tail. And the tail on this guy, it's just brown hackle fibers. I don't know how many, 12, 15 or so, and pretty long, a little bit longer than a hook gap, because you know it's a Catskill style dry fly. Let's catch this in right here and see what we get. Okay, I think that's going to be a good length, but let's take a wrap or 2 back to try and get it laying a little flatter. There we go. I think that'll work. Now a couple wraps to really secure that. I'm going to go ahead and snip this off right here. And don't worry if you don't cut that perfectly, because again, we've got a pretty fuzzy body. So let's take our thread almost to the back of the tail. Now put a good bit of wax on it, because we're putting a big fuzzy spiky dubbing. So get it good and waxed up. Don't need that much, but you know, a good portion there. And the original recipe calls for a fox squirrel, which I didn't have, so I'm using a regular squirrel and then some of the under fur from a coyote mask. So it's basically lightens up this squirrel but keeps it spiky, keeps it pretty fuzzy, which is the intent of the fly. So my thread is waxed. I want to put this on here, not real tight, because we're going to make a dubbing noodle or loop and spin it. And when I'm doing that, you always want to err to the side of just a little bit too much. When you're spinning a noodle, it's hard to go back and add dubbing, and if you have just a little bit extra, it's no big deal. So pull it down with your finger, take your thread back up and catch this off, a couple wraps back. Now I'm going to part my thread right there is about where I'm going to stop the body, but I will just go ahead and put a couple wraps right there. Now I can remember to take a couple wraps back. So I've got my dubbing loop right here, and I've got this dubbing spinner. You don't have to have one of these. You could just do it with hackle pliers, but it would take you a little bit longer. So I'm going to spin this, get my hook point out of the way, pull my thread out of the way, and then spin this dubbing spinner, oh, good 20 plus times or so. And now, you see this, I've got a pretty tight dubbing noodle. And I'm going to go ahead and take it out of my spinner, grab it with some of the spring-loaded hackle pliers here, which should get a good grip on it. And now just wrap this around. And remember, one of the traits of this fly is you should be able to see just a little bit of that red thread through. So don't put these on here too close together. And if your noodle, if you don't spin it all that tight, that's fine. If you can see a little bit of that thread in there, and you might even take a few turns off to loosen it back up. So are we seeing any red through there? Yeah, maybe a little bit. I'm going to try to loosen this up a little. Don't worry if it's a spiky body, that's one of the intents. So that, I think that's as far up as I want to go right there. I'm going to back this 2 thread wraps off. Now I'm going to catch my body right here. I'll catch this with 2 wraps, then I'm going to snip the rest of this dubbing loop off. And now, before I prop that wing up, I'm going to go ahead and catch in my hackle, which is just brown dry fly hackle. And remember, Catskill style, probably want the hackle at least 1.5 times the hook gap. That might be about 2 right there, but that's going to be fine. So let's strip a little bit of this off right here and then get us a tie-in point. Okay, I'm going to catch it in behind the wing. Oh, okay, I think that will wrap just fine right there. And take my thread up, I'm going to go ahead and lift this wing up and then catch that stem in with just a couple of turns in front of it before I snip it. Now I still have this stub on my hackle feather here, so I'm going to go ahead and take care of that. And we want to prop our wing up a little bit more, so I'm going to put a wrap or 2 right behind it, and we also want to split it. So it's not split yet. Just do it with your fingers or a bodkin, whatever you want. Try to get it half and half. Not a big deal, I don't think. And we'll do an X wrap, or sometimes called a figure 8, right through here. And then just take a look at it. Okay, those are split all right, but they're not really sticking up. I want them a little higher up than that. So there we go. And don't worry that they're going forward. We can adjust them as we wrap this hackle. So I'm going to go ahead and put my thread right back up here to where I'm going to end the fly. Now let's wrap this hackle. I'm going to try to get 3 wraps behind it. See what that looks like. 3 behind it and then at least 2 in front of it. So we'll see what that does for us. That's 3. I think, do I want to get greedy? Try 1 more behind it? Sure, why not? Just be careful. Oh no, push my feather, my wing too far forward. But we can compensate for that. We can just pull it back and the wrap right in front of it, kind of prop it back up. So that's 1 wrap in front, and now we've got 2 wraps in front, and that's going to be enough hackle. And it's certainly long enough, and I think it's bushy enough. So I'm going to catch this off with 2 wraps right here. And let's see, I got a couple of fibers going forward I'm going to have to contend with, and then obviously this stem right here. So let's see if we can get these at the same time. I got a couple more right here. I probably don't have to snip these. I could probably push them back. So let's try that. All right. Pull this back and see if we've got enough room for a small head that we're going to whip finish. So I'm just creating enough room right here for a whip finish. And I don't want my head to get too big. But again, I want my my hackle fibers to pretty much stick out perpendicular. I've got one sticking way forward there that I'm going to go ahead and trim before I do the whip finish, because I would probably catch that with my whip finish. So let's see if we can get a whip finish on here and then take a look if we've got any cleanup. So I think a 4-turn will work. Just trying to zigzag it through there a little bit so I'm not trapping any extra fibers. And I think we did all right. Still gonna have a little bit of cleanup on this guy though. So that is about it. Now for cleanup, I'm not gonna mess with that fuzzy body. I want that fuzzy body, but I might have just a few of these fibers on the hackle sticking forward. Not necessarily how I want them. But overall, I think it's a fishable fly and it's gonna work just fine. I'm gonna put a drop of head cement on there and call it done. So that's it, everybody. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care and we'll see you next time.